Welcome back to the CPA Revolution. I'm Charina Padilla here with our tax strategy expert and co-host, certified tax coach and CPA Jose Ortiz. If you are tired of traditional reactive CPA advice and want to turn taxes into a wealth building tool, you are in the right place. Hi, Jose. Good morning.
Good
How are you doing
morning.
today?
Great. How you doing? Happy 2026. This is our first episode of the year.
And we are so excited to continue the CPA revolution. Thank you for being here. And as we get started with 2026, we're really not starting where everyone else is. The conversation from 2025, it's already behind us. So tax preparation, it's about reporting what already happened. And if you're a business owner, real estate investor, or a high earner, reacting in tax filing season is too late.
Too late. Yeah, that's right. And you guys obviously are going to see a whole bunch of different YouTubes and TikToks and all that stuff talking about what documents you need, what's changed in the tax code, what changed in the tax law, what to look out for. That's stuff that you see every year, right? And that's reactive stuff. We're not doing that, right? We're talking to the proactive people out there that want to change the way that their habits when they file taxes or their approach to taxes. We want people who are looking to expand their portfolio, their wealth through saving taxes and all that kind of stuff. So that's where we're going today, Charina.
Yeah. So we need to draw the line. 2025 is behind us. Now it's time to start working on 2026. And preparation versus planning, it's two different things. So we would like to assume that the basics are handled. We assume that you have a CPA. And lastly, we assume that your return gets filed correctly. And honestly, that's the bigger assumption that most people realize.
Exactly. We do see filing errors. Sometimes we see big ones, but even when the returns are technically correct, that's usually not where the biggest mistakes show up. The biggest mistakes we see come from decisions that were really never discussed before the year ended. So, people with their CPAs never really approached them, or maybe they try to approach their CPAs. Maybe they're reactive type of CPA. They didn't answer them or couldn't get answers, right? So we want to talk about those tax mistakes that we see coming from decisions that were never discussed, and because that's the difference between preparation and planning. And that's actually why we wrote the article we're talking about today. It's called Why Your Tax Return Feels Expensive Even when you have a CPA. And the whole point of the article is to explain something, and most people, they feel it, but they can't quite put into words, Charina, right? They're doing everything right. They're making money. They're working with a CPA, but their taxes still feel high. They still feel like random, and they definitely feel unexplained because there's nobody working with them that can give them the right path.
So this is something we'll hear all the time. I don't understand why my taxes are this high, or I feel like I should be doing better than this, right?
Yeah.
And what they usually get back are they're technically correct, right? But the answers don't actually help. Things don't really line up. So
Yeah. And I'm sure right now, you're entering your busy season over at Engineer Tax Services as well. You're going to hear this a lot. I'm sure you hear it every year, right? Why are my taxes so high? I still don't understand. I talked to my CPA. They can't tell me. They say it's too late. They say there's nothing that they can do. So I imagine you get that a lot.
I do every single day.
Every single day. So that's what we're trying to kind of help out with here, right? We want to serve our public in that way. So let's get a little bit into the core ideas of the article.
So one of the main points in the article is that most tax returns are prepared, not analyzed, right? Preparation answers the question, what already happened and how do we report it? Planning asks a total different question. Why did this happen this way? And what should we do to change it moving forward? That's completely a different mindset.
It is. It's a completely different mindset. And, like I always tell my clients, right? We're now planning for 2026, right? We're done with 2025, really, because at this point, a lot of people don't notice, but if you're reaching out to your CPA in January, hoping that there's something that they can do, chances are there's not. There's a few things you can do, depending on your situation. But really, if you didn't have that proactive advice, if you didn't have kind of like the forethought to kind of ask your CPA about this earlier on in 2025, then it's kind of late. So we want to change that mindset.
Yeah, for sure. And as a CPA advocate, I always tell my clients there's not such a thing as a bad CPA. You just outgrow the role, right, that they
Yeah.
play in your business. So it's very important for each business owner and high earning individual to understand the numbers, right?
Yeah.
Another big piece of the article is why people get stuck chasing strategies, right? They hear about hiring kids, buying vehicles, cost segregation, and then they assume the next tactic is the answer.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like, you go online, you get inundated around this time of year with all these different strategies and things you can do. And, people kind of take that, as Bible. And, to me, strategies aren't bad, obviously. I use them with my clients. But what a lot of people call tax strategies, they aren't tax strategies. It's really tactics, right? There's tax tactics. Because a tactic to me is a move that only makes sense when it has the context and the role inside of a larger system, right? So if you don't have a system that basically helps you save money on tax, right, then it's kind of like you're limited to plucking out these single solutions, these standalone solutions that usually, if they're not coordinated with a system, they don't compound. And all they do is create noise and they may create problems into the future. So you really need that context, I would say. You really need a system in order to have, efficiently save money on tax every year. That's why a lot of people can do these smart things, right, and still really feel stuck when it comes to the taxes.
One of my favorite ideas from the article is the idea that the tax return is already telling a story. It's not just a bill, right? It's a
Yeah.
snapshot of how everything is structured.
Yeah, exactly. It's about when my process is basically when I meet a prospect, I ask them the first thing I ask them is, "Hey, let me take a look at your prior year's tax return." And some people think they may find that a little weird, but to me, that is a snapshot of your financial situation, right? Income type, timing, filing statuses, capital gains, all that stuff points to planning pressure.
Mhm.
But if no one looks at the return until after year ends, all you can do is explain it, right? I can't redesign it. But at least it gives me a snapshot of what's happening so that way proactively we can start addressing those in 2026.
I love that. And this is usually why high earners hit a wall. They're making more money, but the same approach that they've been implementing with their accounting team and advisors just stops working.
Yeah, because at a higher income levels, right? All that stuff works when you're, say, a W-2 and you're at I don't want to say lower, but you're, 150K or less, whatever it may be. That works. But the more money you start making, that same approach stops working because, right, at those higher income levels, you need structure and then timing becomes more important, right? More important than just say finding a single strategy. So W-2 income, capital events, entity choices, those aren't necessarily April conversations.
Yeah, and the reason why you're here at the CPA Revolution is to learn about these tactics. And the article ends with a simple question. Instead of asking what strategies should I be using, ask, is anyone actually looking at my situation as a
Yeah.
whole, right? What's the holistic view of everything in this financial picture? And what can we do better to plan ahead and put some strategies in place as the year evolves, right?
Yeah. And for you guys at home, everybody, listening or watching this video, ask yourself, when's the last time that you went to a CPA and they wanted you to kind of lay everything out on the table, right? Just lay it all on the table. Chances are they haven't. And that's one of the things that again we want to do with our clients because then we can figure out what's going in their life or going on in their life currently. What is that North Star that they're trying to reach? And then basically with those two elements, we can figure out what the right plan would be. And of course, to me, developing a system is a tax strategy because most people, guess what? They don't have systems. They don't have systems. They may have bookkeeping. Maybe the bookkeeping is not good. Maybe they don't have bookkeeping at all, right? They don't have a method of recording their mileage, saving their receipts, doing all those kind of snapshot of receipts, whatever it may be, shoebox. They don't have systems in place. So when I'm talking to a new client, the first strategy session we have talks about that. What systems do you have in place? What do those look like? What do we need to tweak in order for you to reach those goals that you had already told me about, right? So that's what we want to do because then it starts becoming intentional. It stops feeling like random, right? And even if we can't necessarily pick pinpoint exact amount of, how much they're going to pay in taxes, whatever it may be. We give them a range, right? And that range will kind of direct people as to what they need to do. They're prepared. And when people finally feel like they're playing offense instead of defense, right, it gives them more confidence, right? And it gives them a direction. It gives them a path towards success. And that's what we want to do, Charina.
Yeah. And having the tools available and that advisor that is going to make sure that you have that structure in place is going to be, golden. That's how you make those big wins. So
Yep.
if episode resonated with you, that's exactly what we were aiming for. And we hope to see your support and share with others that may find this interesting. We're here to move the conversation forward out
Yep.
of tax filing season and into the real world.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, just a quick announcement. We are going to be providing a landing page link. That landing page, if you go ahead and fill that out, put your information there, we're going to send you a guide on how to effectively and efficiently find a CPA, what questions to ask, what you should be thinking about, etc. So that's going to help you move forward. So guys at home, please, 2026 needs to be the year where you're proactive. 2026 should be the year where you're going to make huge gains. Part of that is being on the court. You're not sitting in the stands. You're not waiting for your CPA to do anything. You're not abdicating responsibility to any of your financial professionals. You are taking the ball. You're quarterbacking the situation. And that's what we want, right? Because if I teach you how to fish, you're going to eat all day. That's the idea. So everybody home, really appreciate it. Happy 2026. Best of luck moving forward. My name's Jose Ortiz, Charina Padilla. Charina's with Engineer Tax Services. Reach out to us on the chat and Substack. Reach out to us on YouTube, whatever it may be, but reach out to us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Take care. Have a great one.